Hello and welcome to part 10 of the series on how to create the web WhatsApp UI with ReactJS. In this part, we are going to implement the last scene, which we see right here. As you can see right here, we only have the contact with the name and just the time. We want to change this time with the last scene. So, before we do that, we are actually going to organize our CSS. So, in our checkbox component, which we see right here, we have the CSS of every child element. We open up the component. You see that we start with the navigation, and we open up our navigation right here and open up the CSS. You see that the CSS is empty, and we actually want the navigation CSS to be inside of here. So if we go to our checkbox.css, we actually want to copy over all the CSS for the navigation, which is this, to the navigation.css, like so. If we save this up, you see that the navigation is still the same, but now the CSS for the navigation is inside of the navigation. So we actually want to do the same for the rest of the components. The next component is the search component. So we open up our search.css, and right here we copy over all the code which is for the search section. So save this up, put it in here. This is how it looks without any styling. And if we save the styling, we see that this is back, like so. Next up we have, let's see, the list. So we open up the list.css, and right here we have our list section, which only has two targets or two lines of code. So if we save this up, we see that our list is still working. So next up, inside the checkbox, we have the details. So we're going to open up the details.css and copy the details over from here to here. Let's see. Let's put it on the top, like so. So as you can see, right here we already had some styling, but now we also have the styling from the grid area. If we save this up, we'll see that the details is still the same. Next up we have the chat. So we're going to open up our chat, and right here we have the chat section. Let's copy this over, put it right here, and to finish it off we have the message input, which is right here, and we're going to copy this code. Now we're going to put it right here. So now we have all the code in the correct elements, and we can start with adjusting the time right here. So if we go to our details component right here, we see that we just render a place string named time. So if we change this to time exclamation mark, we see that it's just time exclamation mark. And as we can see, all the contacts have the same time. So what we actually want to do is we want to change the object's data, just right here, for the contacts. And we actually want to add a new attribute to them, which will be last seen. So under the status, we get a last seen, like so. And then we actually want to display a date time. So I'm just going to copy over this right here. And I'm going to copy over this to the other contacts. So right here we have another last seen. It will be, for example, 1 day earlier. Right here we have a last seen. Right here. Last seen on January the 5th maybe. January the 7th. Let's see how many we have. So, wait, this is in the future, that's not possible. Select so. I'm going to do the rest and I'll be back in a second. So now that we have the last seen on every contact, see that we get an error in our chatbox.tsx, which is right here. And as you can see, we get an error right here, which says argument of type contact is not assignable to parameter of set action, profile image, string status. So let's see. The error we get is that the contact model doesn't have the last seen, or the last seen attribute. So right here we're going to go into the model and add last seen as a string, like so. And if we save this up, we should see the error disappearing. Let's see if we still get an error right here. And as you can see, it is now compiling successful. So if we refresh the page, we'll see we are seeing our contact yet again. So that's really nice. What we then want to do, we actually want to pass in the last scene to our details. And we actually pass it in already. We're passing in the whole contact. So when we open up our details right here, we can change time with contact.lastScene. If we save this up, we see the last scene date appearing right here. So next up, we actually want to display the text last scene. So right here, we're actually going to create a function, getLastScene, and this function returns a string, which will say last scene, and then the date. So we're just going to write date like so. And then right here, instead of rendering contact.lastScene, actually want to pass the last scene as a string to here, and we want to execute the function getLastScene with this parameter like so. And then we actually want to change the date with the actual last scene like so. And right now, if we save this up, in this pen we will execute this function, and this function will return last scene with the last scene date appended to it. Let's see how this looks like. Right here we have last scene, and as you can see we have the year, the month, the day, and the hour, minute, and second. That already looks pretty good. What we want to do next is we want to actually transform it. So we actually want to start with the day, then the month, then the year. So to do that, we are actually going to create a date object out of it. So we say const date equals new date last scene, just as we did with the, let's see, with the message, I think. So right here we have our message, and as you can see we have a date as well. So right here we can then say that we want to display first of all the day, so date.getDay, so then a forward slash like so. Then we want to get the date.getMonth forward slash. Then we want the date.getYear, actually full year I think. Let's try this out. If we save this up, we see last seen 3 January 2021. So that looks actually pretty good. But as you can see, we have day, month, year, and this is actually month, day, year, because we cannot have a 20th month. So we need to swap those. This will be the month, get month, and this will be the day, get day, like so. And now we also have month, day, year. And next we want to write add. So after this we write add, so, and then we need to write the hour and the minutes with AM or PM. So we can actually look at how we did this in a message. So right here we have the hours and the minutes. So we're going to copy over those. We're going to put them right here. And then we are going to say if the hours are bigger than 12, then it will be PM. And then we want to subtract 12 hours from it. So we're going to create a variable suffix as well, like so. And let's see, if we have more than 12 hours right now, it will be PM, and then we will subtract 12 hours. So for example, this will become this, I think. Yeah, so 8 o'clock in the evening will become 8 o'clock and then PM, like so. That's the way we're going to do this. We just subtract 12 from it. So what we do then is we want to say add, and let's see, then the hour, we say hours with a colon, and then the minutes, and then we want to write AM or PM, which will be in our case the suffix, like so. And actually instead of getting the minutes right here and rendering like so, we can also say date.getMinutes inside of here. So instead of rendering like so, we can remove this, and we can just call the function right here, and this will be the same. So if we save this up and we refresh the page, right here in a screenshot we see this, last seen 3/20/2015 11:04. Here we see 1/3/2021 11:14 AM. Nice. So let's see, if you look at James, last seen on the 2nd of January, 1st of January, last seen on the 0 of 0, 0 of 2. Okay, so it looks like I got the date a little bit wrong, but that's okay, I guess. Let's see. I think for the contacts, the first is the year, then we have the month, then we have the day. So the way that we can actually fix this is we can manually create the date object right here. So right here, we actually want to get all the components from the date string right here. We want to get this element, this, and this. So the way that we are going to do this is we are going to create a variable in which we save the date sections, which equals last seen, that's split, and then we split by spacebar. So it should be first element should contain this, and the second element should contain this. So what we can do then, we can say that the first date sections is the date, and the second date sections is the time. So say const date section equals date sections 0, const time section equals date sections 1, like so. Let's console.log this, date section, and then time section. Let's see what we get. So if we open up our console, we see, if we refresh the page, nothing. So let's see, why don't we get anything? Oh wait, we do. So we get it up here, but right here we see that we get the date, which is this, and then we get the time, which is this. And as we can see, the date is actually an array. We actually want to console.log the date section, not the date sections. So actually, let's name this date time sections, because then it might be a little bit more clear with the naming, like so. Right now we should first get the date and then the time. Scroll up, we see, if we refresh the page, the date, nice, and then the time. Okay, good. The next, we can actually distinguish each element from there. So we can say date parts equals date section, that's split, and I want to split it by the minus mark, or the, I don't know, horizontal line. So then we should get 2021 02 03. Let's see what happens if we log that. We refresh the page, we see that we get an array of those three elements, which is nice, the year, the month, the day. Then we want to do the same for the time. So we say time parts, and what we're actually doing right now is we are just breaking down the date component or the date time to its individual parts. So right here we want to say time section that's split colon, and if we refresh the page, we should see, if we log the time parts, we should see an array of all the times, so the hour, minutes, and seconds. So now that we have this, we actually want to parse all these strings to a number. So right now we have a string of 2021 02 03. Those should all be numbers. So to do that, we can actually use the map function. So right here we can say map, and we actually use the map function already in some different places, for example in the list. And here we map an object and we return a new value. So we pass in contact and we return a JSX element which uses data from that object. So right here we want to insert a string and we want to return a number. So we want to insert a string, then what do we want to return? We want to return parse int s, like so. And let's see, if we log this, we should get an array of numbers instead of strings. As you can see, there are now numbers, and as you can also see, the 0 is omitted from the 2 and the 3. So we actually want to do the same for the time section. We want to map the string to an int, like so. And if we now open up the console and refresh the page, you see that we also get an array of numbers, which is really nice. So what we can do right now is we can actually construct the date element from year to month to day to hour to minute to second. If we look at this constructor, we see that there's 3 overloads. So the first part that we fill in is the date part 0, which is the year. Then we fill in first element, which is the month. Then we fill in second element, which is the day. Then a third element, which is the hour. The fourth element, which is the minute. And the fifth element, the last element, which will be the second. And sometimes you also have milliseconds, but we are not going to use milliseconds, so we're going to keep it like so. And if we save this up, we should get the correct date. So let's close the console and open up D. And as you can see, it now is displaying the correct date, 3rd of January, 2nd of January, 3rd. Here we see 00/2021, 3rd of January, the 0th of January, 5th of January, 3rd. So as you can see, for some contacts, we still don't get the correct date. So let's look at what is going on in the console. So right here, we can say we want to console the date parts and the time parts. So for example, we know that Justin isn't displaying correctly. So let's open up the console, go to Justin, like so. And as you can see, we get an array of the year, you see, the month first, and then the day, which should be right here. But as we see, it's displaying 0, which is actually not correct. So let's see what the date function right here is returning. We're going to console log the date, like so. And let's refresh the page. And right here, when we click on Justin, right here, we see that we get Sunday, the February 17th. Okay, so it is displaying, wait, it is saying that it is February. So I think the reason why it is displaying February, because the January is 0, February is 1, March is 2nd, April is the 3rd, so it's starting from 0, and we are actually starting from 1. So we should actually subtract 1 from this. We should get, yes, January, nice. But right now we see that it is last seen on 0/4/2021. Okay, so I found out the problem, and actually I didn't understand the date object that well, as it turns out, because right here we see the getMonth function. This is actually the MDN web docs from Mozilla, where we can find everything about HTML, JavaScript, as in documentation. So right here we see the getMonth function, and what does it return? It returns a value between 0 and 11. 0 is January, 1 is February. So if you look at this, see Justin right here, we see that it is displaying the 4th of the 0. So look at here, it's January, so that's the 0th month, so that's actually correct. So what we actually want to do is we want to add 1 to this. So right here, actually want to add 1 to the month. So right now we see January, which is 1. Even though it returns a 0, we add 1, so it becomes January. And the next thing we notice is that the day is off. And well, that's actually a silly mistake, and that's because we use the getDay function right here. So what does this return? It returns the day of the week for the specified date according to local time, where 0 represents Sunday. So it returns a number between 0 and 6. So 0 for Sunday, 1 for Monday, 2 for Tuesday, and so on. So what does this mean? We are displaying the 7th of January right here. See? Yes, the 7th of January. And perhaps the 7th of January of 2021 is, let's see, 0 Sunday, 1 Monday, 2 Tuesday, 3 Wednesday, 4 Thursday. Perhaps it's a Thursday. Let's see, the 7th of January, is it a Thursday? We go back 1 month, like so. Yeah, it's a Thursday. Okay, so that's why we get those weird values right here. What we actually want to do is we want to use the getDate function, which returns the day of the month for the specified date according to local time. It also says right here, for the day of the month, see this, getDate. So let's try that out. Actually, let's look. Yes, this is returning a number between 1 and 31. So this is not returning a number between 0 and 30, which is for the month. So right here, instead of saying getDay, we say getDate like so. And if we save this up, we should see the 3rd of December, nice, 1st of January, the 10th of January, 10th of January, 9th, 5th, 5th, 3rd. Yeah, so now they are displaying correctly, nice. So one thing I'm actually wondering right now is if we should recreate this date part right here. So let's just try it out with what we had before, just the date time. Let's see, we had our last scene actually, like so. We can just remove this. We don't need to console.log this anymore. And let's try this out. So maybe this works, and the problem wasn't how we wrote the date. As you can see, the 3rd of December, 10th of January, 10th of January, 7th of January. Okay, so the problem wasn't that we did construct it wrongly, but the problem was that we used the wrong functions right here. So we can actually remove this again. Sorry, but now we know how we can reconstruct a date element and how we can parse specific components from a datetime string. So that's always handy to know. So with this, we actually have our last scene functionality right here, and I think it looks really good. So with this, I want to thank you for watching. I hope you could follow along and that you've learned something. This time I learned something about the datetime. So I hope I see you next time. Leave a like, comment down below, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!